Hello, welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, the channel that brings you your team every single day, guys. Well, look, we're going to talk a little bit about this story that is in the media regarding an exit for Cyriel Dessers this summer. So it was reported in a number of sources that Dessers himself discussed the potential interest in him from two Greek teams. Now, this is very unusual for a footballer to openly comment on speculation linking him with a move away from his current club. It's not the done thing. If you look at most footballers, when they're questioned about, potential interest from other clubs, they tend not to kind of bring that out. They tend not to discuss it. They tend to kind of shy away from it, don't they? They tend to kind of, try and defer it, push it away. But Dessers openly discussed this interest in him at a press conference post his appearance for Nigeria in a recent game, which, like I said, is very unusual indeed. It was obviously after playing against Ghana and Jamaica recently for Nigeria. Dessers has been linked with a move to two Greek clubs. The two Greek clubs are AEK Athens and Olympiacos, who, of course, Rangers played in the Europa League. Like I said, it is interesting that he expressed an interest. It was the fact that Dessers, when questioned about this interest, he said, well, there is interest in me from Greece, from two clubs. When he was asked about a potential exit, when he was asked about whether his future lay at Rangers. It's like, journalists have said, you don't often get players who actually, push the speculation when they're questioned. They tend to kind of, like I said, they tend to play it down. This kind of may hint that Dessers is very much interested in a move away from the club and a move to AEK Athens or Olympiacos in Greece. Both clubs that are, predominant clubs, big clubs within Greek football. It wouldn't be the fact that he'd be moving to a smaller club. He'd be moving to clubs who don't have a European pedigree or a chance to play in Europe. Both these clubs have that past ability. Now, if you look at their season, last season, AEK Athens finished fourth in the Greek league, and Olympiacos finished top in the league. It was interesting, obviously, that those two clubs are expressing an interest. Now, many people have kind of there's a divided opinion on this. There's those people that love Cyriel Dessers, that think that he's great, that think that he's fantastic. There's others that don't think he's very good or good enough for Rangers. Look, I'm not going to dispute the fact that Dessers tries hard, that he works hard on the football pitch. Of course he does. I'm not going to buy into this, that it was a great achievement, him being the top scorer in Scotland. 18 goals in the SPL is pathetic. It really isn't good enough. I mean, if you look across all other leagues in Europe, and I'm not talking about the top leagues, I'm not talking about the EPL or, La Liga or Serie A or the Bundesliga, the top leagues there. I'm not talking about the likes of Mo Salah, for instance, or, Retegui, I can't remember what the guy's called, the Atalanta striker, or Kylian Mbappe in Real Madrid. If you look at like similar leagues to Scotland, the Dutch league, the Portuguese league, the Belgian league, the top scorers in all those leagues scored more goals than Cyriel Dessers. If you play for Rangers, scoring 18 goals in the SPL really isn't that great. Not when you consider that 90% of the teams, or 95% of the teams, or 98% even, I mean the majority of the teams, let's face it, bar Celtic, that we play against are all shit and not very good. You should be scoring a lot more than 18 goals in a season, against the likes of St Johnstone, Ross County, Dundee, Hibernian, Hearts, Aberdeen, etc., etc. So, look, I mean, 18 goals is not that great an achievement. I think the issue we have with Dessers is that he misses far too many chances. He needs, 4 or 5 chances to score a single goal, and at times that is it can cost Rangers in certainly some of those bigger games. The other issue, of course, is the fact that Dessers is not getting any younger. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31, 32 next season. He's reached the peak of his career. He is not going to develop. He is not going to get any better. It is proven that the majority of strikers do tend to kind of suffer a sort of plateauing or even a fall off once they hit the age of 30. So then, if a club is prepared to come in and offer 4 or 5 million for him, then I think Rangers would be utterly stupid to turn that money down. There is no argument for keeping a 31-year-old player when a club is coming in and offering you basically your money back that you paid on a player. And, we've talked extensively about setting up this trading model. We've talked about, wanting this trading model at the club. Getting the money back or even making a little bit of a profit on Cyriel Dessers surely would be good business for the club, and that money then could be reinvested into the playing squad and used to bring in better players. The other thing, of course, is the fact that Cyriel Dessers is hampering the development of Hamza Rigaman. Hamza Rigaman is a far more talented player, far more skillful player, and technically better player than Cyriel Dessers. We didn't perhaps see the full ability of Hamza because of the fact that Hamza was put on the left wing. Hamza's not a winger. So, I know this will be the comment of a few, well, Hamza did nothing when he played for Rangers. Yeah, because he was playing as a winger and he's not a winger. It'd be like playing Jack Butland up front or James Tavernier in goal. It just genuinely would not end well. So, at the end of the day, you've got to look at it that way. Hamza is the future, realistically, as number 9. And the other thing is, we put Hamza in as number 9. He excels, and look, whenever he's played there, he's done well. The goal against Celtic, for example. Whenever Hamza seems to get a chance playing in that 9, he doesn't seem to let the team down. He seems to score, and he needs less chances to score a single goal than Cyriel Dessers does. Hamza is, like I said, his movement is better, his hold-up play is better, his technical skill is better, his finishing is better. To me, it's hampering Hamza's development. And Hamza is also a player who I believe, if you give him sort of another 18, 24 months, could be worth a massive, massive amount of money. Now, we've already seen English Premier League clubs interested in him, the likes of Spurs, Everton, for example. Obviously, Spurs' priorities may change now that Ange Postecoglou has got the sack as Spurs manager. So, I think, potentially there's legs in this. If Dessers himself is talking about this interest, I think, Rangers would be foolish to keep hold of him if some team are offering us our money back or a profit on him. If AEK Athens or Olympiacos are prepared to come in and offer us £4.5–5 million for the player, or even £6–7 million for the player, then we should be biting their hand off and taking it. I think to keep him would be extremely foolish. This is a player, like I said, who isn't going to get any better. That's not me hating on him. That's me actually, talking about science and talking about scientific footballing fact that players, like I said, on the whole, don't tend to get any better unless they're like unbelievable freaks like Leo Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, or Gabriel Batistuta, someone like that. But obviously Dessers is nowhere near in the same class as those guys. So if we can get some money back for him, I think this is a really good move for the club. This would be a very positive move for the club to get rid of him and to make some money on him. And to, like I said, then that money comes back into the club. It's reinvested into the playing squad, and then we can look at perhaps bringing in more players and aiding this rebuild that is quite clearly needed. No matter what you think of the appointment of Russell Martin, whether you think it's absolutely fantastic and you're really excited about it, or whether you think it's an absolute disaster and the club's going to suffer, you've got to admit that we do need a massive overhaul of this playing squad. There are a number of players who need to go out. We do need to raise money. Now, yes, I agree. There are players who you may say are a bigger issue than Cyriel Dessers and need to go out the door first. However, as a club, we cannot pick and choose who other clubs want to buy. There's certain players who on this staff you may look at and go, well, he needs to go, he needs to go, he needs to go. Well, yes, I probably would agree with you that some of those players that you may name need to go. However, the issue is that teams will not buy players who have got long injury records or who have not done anything in the last 12 months, who have been poor within the last 12 months. They're not going to come and spend money on them. They're not stupid. Clubs are not stupid. They're not going to go, well, he was good 2 years ago, he was good 3 years ago, or he was good before he came to Rangers. They're going to look at what he's done in the last 12 to 18 months and go, well, sorry, but he's not very good. I'm not going to pay any money for him. So, you've got to look at players who've scored goals, players who've stopped goals, players who've done better, in the last 12 to 18 months and look at them and how, you can get money for them. And yes, Dessers has scored goals in the last 12 to 18 months. Therefore, he's going to attract these bids. Therefore, you've got to look at selling. It's the same way that many people have talked about getting rid of Jack Butland this summer. Butland, possibly last summer, you probably could have got somewhere north of £10 million for him. Now, you're going to be lucky if you get anywhere between what, 5–6 million for him. I think, looking at how he's sort of fallen off this season. So, you've got to look at it in terms of a football being a business and how we get the best money into this club and how we work and move forward with this trading model to bring money into the club to improve the club as a whole. Let me know your thoughts and in the comments. I'm ready for all the abuse that I'm going to get now from all the Dessers fans out there. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, please like, comment, share and subscribe. And remember, we are the people.